How many of you are hiding behind a mask, ignoring what's happening? I know what it's like to struggle with your health. I know what it feels like to feel alone. I know what it feels like to feel unheard. At 16 years old, weighed 87 pounds. Had my kidneys and liver shutting down, was being taken to every doctor imaginable. Our medical system isn't built to identify when things are slowly starting to die. It just knows when something's broken. I was created to heal. I was created to thrive. And I can realize that if I choose something different. That's why OWNIT exists. Hey everybody, welcome back to the OWNIT Show. I'm your host, Justin Roethlingshoefer, and it is just so good to be back with you guys. I know, first off, if anybody enjoyed that last 6-part series that we did on what taking ownership of your health actually looks like, just share that around, or just even in a car, just give it a little like woot woot or wherever you are right now. Because to be honest, it was a blast putting together. The feedback I got was just so humbling. And I really hope it served you in a big way, making it simple, ultimately sustainable, and something that can have a major impact. Because when we have an intention, and we can use data to make things intentional, we can put a very specific intervention in place that has a system behind it and a process to make it happen. The inevitable results that we will get are incredible. And I want you to really know that that is why you live. That's why you're here. And so that's what the OWNIT Show is all about, is helping to equip, educate, and empower you to take ownership of your health so you can realize a life that is different. And today we're just really diving into a little bit of my story. And the reason that this came about was throughout this last series, I had a lot of people asking where this information came from, how I was able to distill it in a way that was so simple, that was so easy to understand, that was so actionable. And a lot of this just comes back to because I've lived it. I've lived it. I've been through it. I've researched it. I had to find solutions for myself, even through all of my education. I've told the story often where I was sitting in one of my doctoral level classes, and it was after years of feeling this kind of angst inside. And I finally just asked, why are we learning this? Because everything we're learning doesn't actually make sense to me. And nobody could ever answer my why. Nobody ever could answer, why are we learning this? Why are we leaning into this? Why is this the way that it is? It's just because that's what's in the textbook. That's what we're supposed to learn. That's what we're supposed to understand. And so when you kind of understand my story, you understand where my perspective comes from. You understand why this mission is so important to me. You understand why OWNIT exists. And at the end of the day, OWNIT doesn't exist simply to be another health company. It doesn't exist simply so that we can have a platform to be able to build notoriety. It doesn't exist because I love health so much that I want to be optimized and I want to be perfect and I want to live forever. It's actually the opposite. It exists because I know what it's like to struggle with your health. I know what it feels like to feel alone. I know what it feels like to feel unheard, misdirected, misunderstood when it comes to things regarding your health, because that was literally my story. I grew up as a fat kid. Still remember I was 12 years old, and I had been made fun of in the hockey locker room for a long time about my weight. And my parents did the absolute best they could in terms of understanding food at that time and understanding what was good to eat, what was not to eat. I was an extremely active kid. I was playing hockey, playing baseball, playing soccer. I'd come home from school and immediately go out into either the outdoor rinks in the winter and the streets, playing road hockey in the summer. Like, I was always doing something. But I remember at 12 years old where my parents put me into this study at the University of Alberta, looking at basically obese kids. And they did it with the intention of building my self-esteem and building hey, you know what? You're just on a journey, or you're going through this. growth and maturation phase, and there will be a point where you just grow out of this. And I still remember we were in a classroom, it's probably 200 kids, and they were all filling out these papers with their parents, talking about their types of lifestyle, how much TV they watched, how many video games they played, how much time outside they spent, typical meals, what they were eating, blah, blah, blah. And I called over the guy who was running this, and I said, there's no place to put like 0 hours of TV. And he was like, well, no, it's not just for today, it's for the week. And I said, yeah, like I just don't watch TV. And number one, the look on his face kind of showed me that was very atypical. And he's like, well, just put down 1 hour then. And so I put down an hour, and then the next day I had to go to the University of Alberta kinesiology lab, where the Edmonton Oilers and everybody run their VO2 max testing, their wind gate testing, their biometric, anthropometric testing. And so I got my body composition done. I got my height done, got my weight done. And then they fit me for the VO2 max test, which is, again, as we just learned about, measuring how efficient your body is at utilizing oxygen. And obviously the fitter you are, the leaner you are, et cetera, et cetera. And so as I still remember this, I walked in, and as I was getting all my testing done, there was a guy on the bike. And you have to remember, I was a young hockey player. I was a goalie. And I saw Ty Conklin sitting on the bike doing his VO2 max test. Ty Conklin was the starting goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers, and somebody I looked up to so much. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm going to go do the exact same test that Ty Conklin just did. And so I'm sitting there, I'm watching this. My eyes are like coming out of my head. And I'm like, this is so cool. This is awesome. And as I sit on this bike, Ty comes up to me and he throws me a fresh towel. His was all sweaty. He throws me a fresh towel and he goes, good luck, kid. Hopefully you do better than I did. And gave me a wink. And I was just like, dang, this is awesome. Like, this is my time. Like, this is it. And so as the test started, all I could think about was, I got to do this for Ty. I got to be good. I got to be good, because that was the position that I wanted to be in 10 years. I wanted to be Ty Conklin. He was probably 23, 24 at the time. And that's literally who I wanted to be. And I'm going and I'm doing this test, and I finish. And I was sweating buckets. I pushed myself to the limit, verge of throwing up. And I got off the bike. And again, they looked at me just like, I just don't understand. Where my VO2 max test at the time came back at 43. And for a 12-year-old kid, that's very good. And I still remember, if you remember, 12-year-old kid, very untrained, hadn't really done any formalized training. For a grown man, where you want to be is 45 or greater. And so being at 43 as a 12-year-old kid, it's pretty powerful. And I still remember them sitting there going, this is amazing. And they asked my parents after if they could take pictures. So they did, and do some stuff kind of for an article. And so I did some interviews and didn't think much of it. And then they gave us the download after, and they said, Justin, you literally finished in the top 1% of everything. Like, you crushed everything. And my parents' goal of why they want to do this, again, show me that I was fit, that I was on my way to actually starting to hopefully grow and change my body composition, look a little bit differently, and gain some confidence. And as I went into that meeting, it did exactly that. It's like, you're in a great place. This is amazing. Like, just keep doing this, and the results will come. The results will come. And so I come back, and the next morning, I get to school, and everyone's looking at me a little funny. Everybody's kind of laughing. And as I walk down the hall, I didn't realize this, but on the front page of the paper, there was a picture of me on the bike with a big title that said "Fat and Fit?" And kids had posted about 100 of these all over the school. And so what had become just this really powerful and important moment in my life had literally just become something that was embarrassing, something that was, again, pointing out that I was the fat kid. That's who I was. And that fat kid ended up becoming an anorexic kid. The anorexic kid that was obsessive compulsive about what he ate, obsessive compulsive about tracking sleep, obsessive compulsive about tracking heart rate during exercise so that I would get into certain zones that was actually burning fat, was sleeping naked because it burned more calories, having cold showers because it increased metabolic rate, running up and down stairs because it burned more calories than walking, restricting food so heavily that all I was eating was vegetables and a little bit of meat and a little bit of fruit. So much so to a point where as I was going to school, I'd give away all my food to my friends because that's what they wanted. In my breaks, I was going to the gym and reading more about reading medical journals while on an elliptical for an hour and a half instead of hanging out with friends and doing things that a typical 13, 14-year-old kid would do. And it became a disease and a burden that as one year went to the next, at 16 years old, weighed 87 pounds. Had my kidneys and liver shutting down, was being taken to every doctor imaginable, psychiatrist, medical doctors, eating disorder clinics. And everywhere I went, I would get upset because I was like, this isn't who I am. Like, I don't resonate with anybody in here. I'm an athlete. That's who I am. I'm an athlete. I play AAA hockey. I'm going to play junior hockey. I'm going to get a scholarship. I don't resonate with the frail women who are in and young girls who are in here. I don't resonate with them. And the doctors don't see me. The doctors don't understand what I'm going through. They don't understand what I'm saying to them. They're just telling me that I'm sick, that I'm broken, that something's not right, that I need to be fixed. And that's what I continued to go through until I met a coach. His name's Carl, who just put me under his wing and really helped me understand what I was doing to my body and what I needed to do to get outside of it. And a lot of it came back to this fear of not being good enough, this fear of not impacting the people that I wanted to around me, not getting to where I needed to go, not getting the scholarship, not playing junior hockey, not doing these things. And the only thing that I could really control was what I was eating, how I was training, how I was sleeping, so much to a point where I wanted to show how mentally tough I was by causing myself to suffer unnecessarily. And as I fast forward, those thoughts, that voice in my head of you're not good enough, you have to prove yourself, you have to push through, continues to be in my head. Continued to be in my head in my 20s, as even though I came down on hockey scholarship, even though I was getting 2 undergraduate degrees, even though I was doing my master's degree, even though in my postgraduate research, even though in my massage therapy degree, I was learning all about this stuff, but I was never able to understand why we were learning these things. And it was during my massage therapy license, as I was sitting for it, going to night school, that all of a sudden it hit me that health is truly holistic. Health is not just what it looks like on the outside. Because forever, all I wanted was six-pack abs. Because remember, 12, 13-year-old Justin was just always poked fun at for being fat. And all I wanted was the six-pack abs to say, oh, you know what? No, I am good enough. I do have these. This is a statement of who I am. And that's all I wanted. And then once I got them, it didn't make anything better. It actually was the point at which I was the sickest, the point at which I had no energy. Still remember skating up and down the ice at 18 years old. Had done a workout in the morning, would go onto the ice, would practice, and then go into the weight room again later that afternoon. And still remember we're kind of doing like a bag skate or a conditioning skate. And behind my mask, I was so exhausted, so tired. My legs had nothing left to give. I could just feel my body like saying, bro, enough. And tears were streaming down my face behind my mask, just waiting for this hell to be over. And I often wonder how many people feel like that today. The entrepreneurs, the executives, the people who push themselves so hard for the pursuit of a mission, continue to push, continue to push, continue to push. But really, if they were to look behind the mask, they're crying, going, when is this hell going to be over? This pursuit that you're on, this mission you're trying to build, this business you're trying to build, this family you're trying to balance. You sit behind the mask and you go, what point is this going to be over? Not realizing that your body's slowly shutting down. Not realizing that things inside that your body is having to deal with is slowly killing itself. Because again, remember, our medical system isn't built to identify when things are slowly starting to die. It just knows when something's broken. And at that point, you've entered into the system and it's too late. At that point, you're already a part of the problem. At that point, there's no return. At that point, hey, you're on medication and pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life because that's what our system's set up to do. And everything that you've been doing up until that point has simply been waiting for you to get here. But how many of you, if you're honest with yourself, are sitting here with a mask going, just put a good face on, just continue to keep going. Nobody will notice. But yet what we do notice is that you fall asleep, you can't stay asleep. You've got weight gain that just won't go away. You've got body aches and pains that randomly show up and you have no idea why. You've got hormonal issues that don't actually make any sense whatsoever. You're infertile as a male and you've got early onset perimenopause as a female. All these signs, the same signs that I had, that my body was shutting down, that my body was done, that my body was tired, that my body was fatigued, that I wasn't doing what was necessary and what was right. And every doctor that spoke in could not give the solution because there was no solution because I wasn't broken. What was actually necessary was me needing to live a life that was different, needing to change habits, change behaviors, be more intentional about what I was doing. Because what I was actually doing was earning my illness, not actually earning my health. And those that are listening to this, how many of you maybe listened to the last 6 episodes and was like, yeah, that's all awesome, but I do my 30-minute workout in the morning, or I eat healthy because I eat all organic or all gluten-free. But little do you know, your gluten-free food is all full of processed chemicals. Little do you know that your exercise routine is literally just enough to get a little sweat on the brow and make you feel good that you went and did it, so that you can ultimately go and obsessively push day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year at whatever it is that you're choosing to build, whatever business that is, whatever executive seat you hold, to say that you're good enough, to say that you're doing the right thing, to say that you're actually worth it. But little do you know, it's just a matter of time before your body says, hey, that's it. That's enough. And for me, that showed up when I was 30 years old. I had just finished my time in the NHL, health and performance director, managing the health and performance of the best athletes in the world. You'd think I would know. You'd think I'd know better. You'd think I'd understand. I was in Chicago with Elise. I hadn't felt well for the last year in the league. I was pushing, staying up late, looking at data, making sure that every report was right, making sure that every system was in place, making sure that everybody else's game plan was operating it the right way. And I started to have this bloating that wouldn't go away. I hired a meal prep company. I was like, yeah, I need you to eat. I need you to give me as clean food as possible because it must be everything I'm eating. And I'd eat and I'd literally feel like I was carrying around a child. I'd lay on my bed at night and I'd fall asleep, exhausted, but then wake up in the middle of the night, couldn't stay asleep. I'd wake up in the morning with these pains in my low back and my shoulder that I'd never had before. I'd get headaches around 11, 12 o'clock every day. And I was like, what is happening? This has never happened to me before. And as I continue to push, I was in Chicago working out in the hotel gym with my wife. And I still remember we got off the treadmill. I picked up a set of dumbbells, and that was the last thing I remember because I was face first into the floor. Elise had to pick me up. She put me on the bench, and she was just like, what is going on? Because up until that point, I had gone to all the doctors. They said, no, you're the picture of health. Nothing's wrong. Blood work looks great. Everything looks great. Went to all the functional docs. They gave me $2,500 worth of supplements. I still remember Elise and I went on a 10-day vacation to Hawaii. I had a carry-on bag just for the supplements I was supposed to take to help me get well. Didn't do a thing. And that was where my body said, hey, this is enough. Went and got a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. They found 4 precancerous polyps in my colon and an ulcer in my stomach. And that's what was ultimately going to kill me. And they said, wouldn't see the age of 35 if I continued on. And that was when things took a very different turn. When Justin all of a sudden said, hey, This is the vehicle that I have been given to carry out the calling which I have. It was about later that year. I had it prophesied over me that I was supposed to, that I was here simply to keep tips of the spear sharp. That was my purpose. That was my calling. And in order to keep tips of the spear sharp, I had to be the example of what that looked like. And it required doing things differently. And so as you step into this, and I go back to this, how many of you are hiding behind a mask, ignoring what's happening? No, you know what? You may not have precancerous polyps. You may not have an ulcer. You may not be anorexic. You may not be fat. But yet, behind the mask, what do you know in your heart and of your soul that, hey, you know what? How I'm operating is not going to get me to where I need to be, is not going to take me to the level in which I need to go. Behind that mask, you're secretly crying. You're secretly knowing that the results you're getting, the inability to see a pregnancy through, your inability to focus all day long, your inability to lose weight, your inability to gain weight, your inability to have high levels of testosterone, your type 2 diabetes that you've just gotten, the type 2 or the high level of glucose and HbA1c, the pre-diabetic diagnosis that you've just gotten from your doctor, the high cholesterol, the high triglycerides, the high blood pressure, the same things that are chasing your parents or attacked your parents are now chasing after you, simply because the patterns in your life, the systems in your life, the processes in your life are not set up to succeed, but instead are just leading you down the same path to ultimately be treated by the system that wants you there. Because you're an asset if you're on a pharmaceutical. You're an asset if you're being treated in our medical system. You're an asset. There's money to be made off of you. Instead of you taking ownership, you saying, no, I'm taking a stand for who I am. I'm taking a stand for this body I've been given. I'm taking a stand so that I can live differently and feel different, look different, and ultimately operate different. Because if you don't take a stand for anything, you're going to fall for everything. And unfortunately, because you've taken such a stance in business, you don't feel like you have to take a stance for yourself. Because you've taken a stance to serve everyone, you don't feel like you have to take a stance to be served. Because you've taken a stance to make sure that everybody else around you is great, you've accepted mediocrity, the leftovers, whatever it is that you can get. But behind that mask is somebody who knows that what they're doing is not getting them further ahead, but rather it's a form of punishment. And every doctor, every expert, every therapist, anybody that you've gone to doesn't see you, doesn't understand you, just gaslights you, saying there's something wrong, there's something broken, but yet we don't know what it is. Here, take this to solve it. And until you can step back and say, you know what? I don't have to live this way. You know what? I don't have to accept this as normal. You know what? This is not something that I have to abide by. I was created to heal. I was created to thrive. And I can realize that if I choose something different. That's why OWNIT exists. It's for the people who are committed. It's for the tips of the spears who want to get sharp again. It's for the tips of the spears that have been used and have been willing to step into dark areas that often people are not willing to go and are like, man, I'm dull. I'm worn. I need something to sharpen me again. That is who OWNIT is built for. So you can go out and ultimately have the impact that you want. You can go out and you can feel the way that you want. Operating at 40% that you've considered normal, you don't have to feel this way anymore. There's freedom on the other side, but it requires you saying, I want something new. I want something different, just like I had to do. So OWNIT doesn't exist because I love health. OWNIT doesn't exist because I love to be optimized. OWNIT doesn't exist because I like to be perfect and put the perfect show on. No, OWNIT exists because I know what it's like to feel. I know what it feels like to struggle with your health. I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to feel misunderstood, misdirected, unheard. I know what it feels like to be messy in this game of health. I know what it feels like to feel messy and torn in this game of serving people as a business owner, as a family guy, and looking after you. I know what that messy feels like. And in a world that tells us there's a perfect way to do it, there is not a perfect way to do it. In a world that tells us we have to have every tool to optimize ourselves, there isn't a way that we have to use every tool to optimize ourselves. In a world that tells us we have to look a certain way, I come back and say, no, We have to figure out what you need so that we can help you in your imperfect progress so that you can continue to serve at a level that is elevated. Because there's only one you. You only have one body. And so it's time to fight like hell for it, if that's what you're called to do. Otherwise, we know the outcome's inevitable. But each outcome is inevitable. Whether it's positive or negative, just depends if you're a tip of the spear or not. We know success is different. So own your different. We'll see you guys next week.